Hi, ladies and everybody watching. Welcome tonight. Get that off of there real quick. I'll wait till I see that everything is up and running. We already have people in the chat. So we've got a lot of Ambers. I noticed we have a lot of A names that listen, and lots and lots and lots of Ambers. So we already had a question someone asked about earrings. Someone asked about handling a rowdy toddler in service. My 5-year-old is still not very good in the service. So, but tonight I wanted to do an episode about dealing with in-laws. I don't know if we've ever talked specifically about dealing with in-laws. So I know I've had that question come up from a lot of people. So I figured we go ahead and deal with that. And then maybe even, like brother and sister-in-law relationships, things like that. So if you guys have any questions specifically related to that, go ahead and leave them below. Also, this guy said, nope. Nope to what? So, oh, no, I haven't done one. Yeah. So also go ahead and like this video as soon as you're done watching it or while you're watching it. Share it. Do all that good stuff. We're almost to 1,600 subscribers. So it's good to see it keep on going up. Don't mind me. I'm in my Gently Led t-shirt, Gently Led Sisters t-shirt tonight. And it's, I've been cleaning all day. So I've got like baby drool and spit up. So don't look at that tonight. So yes, I did survive my trip. Someone said, I see you survived your trip. My son drove the last 2 hours on the way there. I did not have him drive on the way back just because we left at 5:15 in the morning to get back home. So I had gotten up at 4:30 and I had gotten him up at like 4:45 and told him to load the rest of the junk in the van. So I knew he was tired. So he did not drive the rest of the way back. But that's another episode we should do, teaching teenagers to drive. It's so much fun. I might have Miss Sherry on again in the next few weeks, maybe in a month or so. I feel like there was just a lot of stuff that we didn't even get to cover. So I might have her on again for another segment about teenagers. I feel like we didn't talk about behavioral things like what to do, about attitudes in teenagers, rebelliousness, a lot of things like that. I don't feel like we covered. So I'm going to probably have her on again. Also, stay tuned to the end. We'll do another giveaway. Amber Hunt, I put it in the comments, but I sent your shirt off today. I did not get to it last week because we left early Tuesday morning and I was in Missouri the whole week. So, okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into dealing with in-laws, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I know a lot of you that listen are ladies, and I know a lot of you have horrible mother-in-laws. In fact, someone just left a comment. I have a horrible mother-in-law. Sometimes we keep our distance. We aren't estranged from them, but we aren't in constant contact. We are definitely guarded with all the issues she likes to cause. I don't have this problem with my mother-in-law. I have like probably the world's best mother-in-law. She has been great. She has never caused issues. She's never overstepped her bounds. She has always been she was a great mom to my husband growing up, and she's a great mother-in-law. My father-in-law is a great grandpa to the kids. He was a pastor for a really, really, really long time, and he just retired this past year. And he is great with the kids. He and I, we have a lot of a similar personality. So I'm not going to say that things have always been perfect between us. We have butted heads, which I don't hear too many daughter-in-laws butting heads with their father-in-laws, but I would say more butted heads with him than my mother-in-law, but we get along great now. We've learned to, you learn to deal with each other. You learn what not to do. You learn as you go. We were my husband and I were the first kids on either side to get married. So a lot of it has been a learning curve for our parents, both sets of the parents and things. It was a learning curve. So, it is definitely a learning curve from the time that you get married. So, the number one thing I would definitely say is that you need to remember, and your husband needs to remember, that when you get married, it is leave and cleave. Okay. The Bible talks about leaving and cleaving. And I firmly believe in leaving. And, you just need to realize that your husband is now your number one priority and you are his number one priority. So, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I know there's a lot of men that are attached to their mamas and they can't seem to cut the apron strings. And, it causes a lot of problems, a lot of drama in the marriage. And I would definitely say if that is causing problems, then that needs to be done. You need to cut the apron strings, definitely. But, realize that your in-laws raised your spouse and every family does things differently. You're going to have different traditions and you're going to have different ways of doing things. Lots of things are unique to a family. And that's one of the things about siblings. There's always, even if you don't agree with your siblings' life choices and things that they do, there's always a bond there because you were raised together and your family did do things, the same way. And you always have that bond. So no matter how different you and your siblings are, there's always that bond of just being raised in the same home and, doing things the same way, having the same traditions and things. There's things that my mom did raising us that I've carried over into my family. And now we do it, such as like maybe a Christmas tradition was, we always do stockings and I stuff them full of junk food, candy and chips and things like that. And she always made a big deal out of the stockings. Another thing is cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. She always made cinnamon rolls and hot cocoa or coffee on Christmas morning. And I've always done that since the time that my kids were little. I'm trying to think of what other traditions. That's just some of mine. My husband's, let's see, what's some of the things he did. I knew on New Year's Day, growing up as a kid, he always watched Willy Wonka. What is it called? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Is that what it's called? And he always watched it because that was his parents' anniversary. And so his mom hated the show, which I hate the show too. So we have that in common. His mom hated the show. And so when her and my father-in-law would go away for their anniversary, they would let the kids watch it while they were gone because my mother-in-law hated it. So that was kind of a tradition. And a lot of times we've done that on New Year's Day. And there's different traditions and, try not to have a problem if your husband wants to do things a little bit differently than you do. He has his traditions in place. You have your traditions in place. And one thing I wanted to say about the traditions is I know a lot of people struggle with the who to spend the holidays with. And one thing that we've done, we kind of struggled with this early on and there was hurt feelings. And, my mom would get her feelings hurt because we weren't there for Christmas, or we weren't there for Thanksgiving or whatever. So things kind of fell into like a rhythm when it came to holidays. And at first we started doing, we were doing Christmas Day over at either my mom's or his parents'. And so what we started doing is we started doing every other. So like one year I would be with my family. The next year we would be with his on Christmas. Well, then as our kids got a little bit older, we were like, we don't want to be traveling on Christmas anymore. This is stupid. The kids unwrap their presents in the morning and then they're not able to play with them. So we told both sets of parents, we said, we're not going to be able to do Christmas Day at all. That's for us and our kids. So now we stay home on Christmas Day the whole day and it's a lot better. The kids are able to open their stuff and then spend the whole day goofing off with it or whatever. So what we normally do now is we just kind of find a date that works. And sometimes that's Christmas Eve. Sometimes it's the day after Christmas. And for either side of our family. Now for Thanksgiving, we pretty much spend Thanksgiving Day with his side of the family. That's like the big holiday for his side. On Christmas, not everyone makes it home. So for Thanksgiving, that's like the big day. So we pretty much spend that with his family. And then usually my sister will have something the day after. So sometimes I'll spend the night and then me and the kids, if my husband has to work, which happens a lot, we'll go over to her house the next day for Thanksgiving and do Thanksgivings back to back. But, just try to work, obviously once you start having children, you need to make sure that you make the holiday more for them because it is, you know, you're always going to be your parents' child. But when you start having kids, you know, it's more about your family unit and not so much, you know, celebrating with your side of the family, which it's good to celebrate, but, you know, you got to try to find different ways that'll work for you there. So, and then also just things like, you know, the way that they eat was differently than you ate. My mom was always kind of a health nut growing up, and my husband's side was absolutely not. So, I had a hard time getting him to eat healthy food when we first got married, and he's still not the healthiest eater. I don't like cheese, but I mean, he's come a long ways though. He'll now eat stuff that I never ever thought he would eat. So try to be patient with that. Try to introduce, you know, new foods with him, but try not to push it if he doesn't like it. So, and, you know, I'm just going to tell if there's any men watching, one thing that you do not ever say is, my mom's tasted better. Don't ever say, my mom's biscuits were better, or these don't taste like my mom's. Don't say that to your wife. Just a word of caution there. My husband learned that early on. So, so yeah, there was also like different rules in the home, you know, growing up. Maybe some things that my husband wasn't allowed to do, I was. And so then when it comes into raising your own children, you're just going to have to find the right fit for your family. You're going to have to decide what's acceptable in your home, what's not acceptable, things like that, you know, and just realize that that's going to be different. So just remember that it's okay to do things differently than the way you were raised. It doesn't have to be, you know, exactly like mama told you. I'm not talking even about like standards, convictions, things like that. I'm talking about even just methodology. You know, maybe your mom was super structured, and she had 3 kids that were like perfectly in line, perfectly dressed, perfectly hair perfectly done, and maybe you have 8 children that are under the age of 10, and you just can't be like that all the time. You know, don't feel like you don't measure up to your mom or even to your mother-in-law. And for everyone's sake, I hope that they don't have a mother-in-law who makes snide comments about family sizes and things like that. And I know it's really hard not to respond angrily when someone says something like that, but you can be blunt and you can be tactful in a nice way without being mean about it, if that makes sense. So, yeah, what do you do when in-laws butt in? So I know a lot of you probably have in-laws that do butt in. So I'm just going to go off some guidelines that I have and things I have done in my life. And then, you know, if any of you have any suggestions, go ahead and leave them. Because like I said, I am blessed with a super good mother-in-law, so I don't deal with mother-in-law problems at all. So I know a lot of you do. So I'd like to hear how you deal with it. But like I said, you can be firm, you know, while at the same time being kind. There is no need to have a mean streak in you or just be petty, but you can put your foot down and say, one thing I've had, my mom is also very opinionated like I am. And I've had to tell her, I appreciate your input, but this is the way my husband and I are going to do it. And that's usually enough. It usually is enough to suffice. She knows when to just back off. And, you know, now that I'm almost 40, I know I'll always still be her child. Now that I'm almost 40, though, I feel like in the last 10 years or so, it really hasn't been an issue. I feel like early on in my marriage, I was only 20 when I first got married. My husband was only 20. And she did try to pull that. It's hard for a mom not to. It's hard for a mom to see you doing things a little bit differently with how you raise the kids and not try to say, well, I didn't do it that way, you know, or things like that. It's hard not for her to give you advice. So that I did just say that a couple times. I said, Mom, yeah, thanks for your opinion. I'll think about it. But my husband and I have decided we're going to do this. We're not going to do that. And that could be for anything as far as like vaccinations, maybe like even herbal remedies or going to the doctor versus not going to the doctor, things like that. I'm sure there's been things since that she's not agreed with me, but she just, I think they learned to just keep their mouth shut. So, and I'm going to have to learn that when my kids get married. So, be blunt if you need to be. There's definitely some mother-in-laws that really, really, really want to push things. And sometimes they don't get the hint. Even if you're trying to be tactful about it, they don't get the hint. So if it comes to, if you have said you have guidelines in your home and you've said my kids are not going to do this, and your parents continually try to push it or go behind your back and do it, it's okay to say, we will not allow this. Please do not do this. If you do this, we will have to go home, or, we will not be able to visit as often, things like that. So, let's see. Kelly said, my in-laws are pastor and co-pastor for an apostolic type church with priest robes and funny hats. I worry they are reprobate. I will not let my kids go with them unsupervised, and they don't like it. Grandparents have a really hard time when you will not let them go unsupervised with them. But, if you're really worried about it, if you have a bad gut feeling about something, then you have to go with it. It's more important to protect your children. So, Jessica said, my family asked me if my husband and I agreed about not vaccinating or if he was forcing me. That's funny. I would just say we are in complete agreement with this. He doesn't, I am on board with him. He is on board with me. We are in complete agreement with this. So vaccinating is a big hot button issue. And I feel like for a lot of people our parents' age, if you're in the 30-some years old like I am, a lot of people that are in their 50s or 60s, they do not understand this new generation that's deciding not to vaccinate, and they get really upset about it. And so that can be a very, very hot button issue. And you know what? There's even things that you can print off, research and things that you can show them. If they start badgering you about it, you can tell them, say, I just told someone the other day that I cannot in good conscience inject things into my child that have been derived from aborted fetal cells, and direct them to the Plotkin video where he talks about all the aborted babies that they use to make vaccinations, direct them to that and just tell them, say, for me, it's a morality thing. It's come down to a morality thing. And most people can't really argue about that. Some still will, I've found, but a lot of people won't. So, yeah, you need to establish boundaries, like I said, from the beginning, decide what your family is going to do, and then stick to it. If it's something you're wishy-washy about, just don't, and you haven't really fully decided it, don't get really upset if your parents do it. Let's say it's watching Disney movies. Okay, we'll use that as an example. And you're kind of like, well, some of them are okay, but then some of them aren't. We really want to start Disney. And, your parents let them watch The Jungle Book or something. Don't explode over that, when it comes to petty things like that, and you haven't even fully decided. Now, it's a different story if you say no Disney at all, and your parents are like, oh, I let him watch The Jungle Book. I know it's Disney, and I know you said no Disney, but it's fine. It's clean. There's nothing in it. Then that's deliberately going behind your back, and you might have to say, okay, no TV. Don't even turn the TV on if my kids are going to be there, things like that. So let's see. If they won't abide, and that brings me to the next point, if they won't abide by your rules or guidelines when it comes to your kids, then they don't have to watch them. They can be around them when you're around them. Since my kids are older now, my parents and my husband's parents don't really watch them much because I have older kids that can watch the kids themselves. So this is really not a non-issue, but my in-laws and my mom have always been really good about asking, okay, is this approved? Can they watch this? We're watching this show. Can they watch this? And they've always been really good about asking, or even asking the kids, as your kids get older, they're going to know what's allowed and what's not allowed. So that's something too. What do I think about grandparents that spank your kids? I think that if your grandparents are you were raised by your grandparents. You were raised by your grandparents. You were raised by your parents. So you know how they are about it. So I would definitely say if the grandparent is watching the child, especially overnight or something, and they need it, then I'm fine with that. I've only had one kid that's been spanked. It is so funny because it's the same kid that was spanked by both grandparents. So, and I feel like some more of my other children he was like one of my better ones, but he was the one that got spanked by both grandparents. And it was just a couple swats on the butt. So it was not a big deal. And after they did it, he straightened up. I think it was like, what? Grandma spanked me? And it was my mom and my husband's mom. So I think it shocked him and he straightened up. So yeah, I think that if you're going to trust your parents to, I guess grandparents, parents, if you're going to trust your parents to watch your children, then you should trust them to give them a few swats if they need it. So definitely. Let's see what some of the other things said. My sister-in-law is a sodomite sympathizer and we butt heads a lot on the sodomite issues. How should we deal with such agreements? How should we deal and still have our kids be able to see each other at family get-togethers? That's hard. I would definitely, if she is going to be around at family get-togethers, I would definitely watch your kids around hers. Always be on guard, I would say. Even with your sister-in-law and your brother-in-laws, they're raising their children differently than you are. So you don't know what they allow in their children's lives, especially if they are soft on the sodomite issue, then they're probably allowing stuff into the children's lives as far as what they watch, what they hear, what they listen to, more so than you are. So you want to be aware of that and make sure that they're not, telling your children things that you don't want them to hear. So it might come down to, if it gets really bad, just cutting ties. I know that's awful, but our kids are our number one priority. So I have cut temporarily people out of my own life as far as communication, just to protect myself, protect my emotions, protect my kids. So you just have to decide that. So Alicia said, when I started wearing skirts, my family thought I was in a cult. That happens often. So Hope Shara said, I have family that are sodomite sympathizers too, so I'm unsure how much my kids will be around them. And I would definitely say that, even if your kids are around them, just you be with them too at the same time. So then someone said, family gatherings really bother me now because it becomes a Bible bashing fest. That is tough when you are going to unsafe family members' homes. It is tough, especially if they're mocking. And I would just actually, if it's going to become a big Bible bashing fest and they know that you're a Bible believer and you are a Christian, I would just not attend, frankly. If I know, in fact, with family get-togethers, if I know there's going to be free-flowing alcohol, I don't attend, because I don't want my kids to get comfortable around that. I want them to feel very awkward around alcohol. And if we constantly go to places that have it, they're going to get more and more comfortable being around it. I don't even like going to places, like I've said before, restaurants that are called bars, that have bars in the name. I don't like that. So we stay away from stuff like that. So we cut ties on Facebook. Yeah, I've cut ties with some close family members on Facebook because of that. So I understand it's hard, but actually it helps your sanity, and it helps your, it helps you not have to focus or dwell on it too much. So, but yeah, ask them how much they want to see your kids or how much involvement they want to have. Some grandparents really want to be invested, and they go borderline too much time. And if they're over at your house like every single day and you can never get anything done because you feel like you have to constantly stop to entertain them, set guidelines. Tell them if they live in the same town as you, okay, we homeschool from 8 to noon, and then we have naps from 1 to 3. So you can come over anytime you want from, 3 to 5 until supper. Give them a guideline, or you can come after supper, but tell them it's really tough for you when you're trying to homeschool and trying to keep the house picked up and things, and to have a visitor in the middle of the day. So my in-laws are always really good. They live about an hour away. My mom lives about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And they always, all of them call before they come over, which is awesome. Even when we lived in the parsonage right by the church, they always made it a point to call me before they came over, which I appreciated. That way I'm not caught off guard. And sometimes I've told them that right now it's not a good time, and they're not offended. That's why they asked. So just try to put some guidelines in place for that. So, and then, try to honor them. Oh, what I was going to say there too about the involvement, I skipped over that too quickly. Some want to be overly involved, but then some don't want to be as involved as they were raising you. You know what I mean? So maybe they're not comfortable with keeping your kids for 4 days at a time so you can go with your husband somewhere, and realize what they're comfortable with and then try to accommodate that. My mother-in-law would get overwhelmed quite a bit when the kids were all younger, and I had 3 kids in 3 years. So it was very overwhelming for her to watch them for more than a few hours at a time. So I would try to keep that in consideration. And sometimes I would split up kids. I would do like the 2 boys at my mom's house, and then one of the girls or 2 of the girls at my mother-in-law's house. I'd have to split them up. And when you have a big family, sometimes you have to do that. Our parents are older. They don't have the energy that they had when they were younger, when they were our age raising kids. That's why God says to have kids when you're young and to enjoy the wife of your youth, because you get married young and you have kids young, because that's the best way to do it. So, try to be aware of what they can handle. Try to pick up on their social cues. You can tell if your mom or mother-in-law is totally stressed out from watching your kids. So, try to be aware of that and try to work around that. Split the kids up if you need an overnight with your husband, things like that. So, Sherry said, my mother-in-law recently moved in with us. We have a great relationship, though. That's cool. I didn't know that, Miss Sherry. Yeah, I would not mind if my mother-in-law lived with me. I love her to death. She's great. She's never butted in. She's just like the true Proverbs 31 woman. She's like meek and quiet and sweet and gentle. And, some women are like that. So that's great. Try to honor them, but realize you have to do what's best for your family. Okay, there's some kids that they go overboard with trying to please their parents still when it comes to accommodating them and doing their every whim, being there whenever they want. And they just, if it's causing stress on your family, then you need to do what's best for your family, and you need to focus on your family, over that of your in-laws, your parents. I think you can definitely have a good relationship and honor them while setting boundaries and having guidelines and letting them know I'm an adult now. I know it's so hard for our parents to see us as adults. I told my husband, I said, even though we are almost 40 and we've almost raised one child is 17 and a half. He's so close to being an adult. We've almost raised an adult ourselves. But yeah, sometimes I feel like with our parents, they still see us as little kids. Maybe that's how it will always be. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to find out when my son gets married and starts having kids, if I still always see him as my little boy. But maybe that's how it always will be. Maybe that's that generation. I don't know. So we'll see. See what happens. So then, yeah, Kelly said none of our family members could handle all 8 kids without having a heart attack. Yeah, if you have a huge family, it's not for everyone. Not everyone can handle it, especially when they're not used to it. I give people at the grocery store panic attacks just looking at our family. Well, Kelly, you have a lot of young kids too. So you've had 8 kids in a short amount of time. So not everyone can handle that. And just think, you are their mama, and you get stressed out by the end of the day, and you love them with all your heart and soul and mind. And, your parents love them too, but they're not used to that huge amount of kids. So, So yeah, ask them to lay off if they are overstepping or smothering you. I have friends that have had in-laws that are just so smothering, like they want to be over there all the time. They try to butt in all the time. And I would probably be a little bit more blunt than my friends. But my friends just kind of shut up and dealt with it. But then they would have like all of this anger, like building, just building and building and building. I would be like, you have to tell them that they're driving you nuts. Tell them in a nice way. Just say, can you please, please just back off. And you can say it in a nice way. So, let's see. We split ours between two grandmas when they were little, once a year. Yep. Miss Sherry, I think we usually, when they were little, we went out about every 6 months. So maybe twice a year, and we would have to split them up quite a bit. So Alicia said, my father-in-law babysat my boys once while my husband and I went on a date. When we came back, he said he was physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted. That's hilarious. And then Brittany asked, can being around unsaved family for a prolonged period of time cause depression? I find myself getting really discouraged when I spend time with certain family members. Maybe I'm too sensitive. No, it absolutely can. In the same way that coming to church and being around like-minded believers can cause you to be uplifted and cause your spirits to be encouraged and things like that. Being around the opposite, being around unsaved, it can vex your spirit, and it can cause doubts in your head. Like, am I eccentric? Am I crazy? Maybe they're right. It can definitely cause depression. So I would just say, get surrounded by, if you have to spend time with the negative, make sure you spend more time with the positive. Make sure you're in church and you're fellowshipping with like-minded believers, or even online, or you're talking, you have a friend that you can confide in and talk to about spiritual things. Because I definitely think it can get to you. It can weigh you down. So, yeah. So what do you do about toxic in-laws? Okay. So toxic in-laws, there are some of these people out here. Obviously, for some people, you can't just cut ties completely when your husband still loves them. Maybe it's your husband's mom, it's your husband's dad. I would say I would be more lenient with the in-laws with my mother and father-in-law than I would of my sister-in-law, brother-in-law. If I've got a sister-in-law or brother-in-law that's just completely rotten to the core and toxic, I would definitely not plan things with them. I would try to keep my distance, things like that. With ones that are their mother and father-in-law, though, I would definitely try to work on it, just because, you did marry their child, and they'll love them forever. So, just put up with some annoyances. Definitely try to work things out. I know sometimes we can be a little too sensitive, maybe. And part of it is because a lot of us are functioning on no sleep. I am functioning with a very, very high maintenance baby that does not like to sleep. She barely ever sleeps during the day. And it's really, really hard for me to get anything done. So I know when I am low on sleep, I'm very grouchy. Susanna Anderson did a Mothering Moments about self-care just a couple weeks ago. And my self-care is sleep. I love my sleep. Ever since I was a little girl, I have loved to sleep. I am very bad about getting up early in the morning. Like, I'm talking 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I'm horrible at it because I just love my sleep. I crave sleep. And when I get enough sleep, I can conquer the world. I feel great. But when I don't get enough sleep, I'm very grouchy and sensitive, and I tend to be on the verge of tears more. Now, for me, I usually only cry about once a year or so. So I'm not lying. So I usually only cry a couple times a year. So I'm a little more on the verge of tears when I am low on sleep. So just take into account, if you are feeling weepy, if you're feeling emotional and you're around your in-laws and they just say something stupid, just try to remember that a lot of it is it's not as bad as you think. You're just really sleepy and you're really tired. So Just try to take into account your mood. I have definitely not always followed this advice, and I have said things that I regretted, and I have caused drama. And I want to mention too, if you are having in-laws that constantly overstep, then, if they, like, say it's your husband's parents, he needs to be the one to talk to them. He needs to be the one to go to them. If you go to, your mother-in-law or father-in-law, it's just, you're going to come across looking like the bitter in-law child. Have your husband go and say, listen, this is really hurting my wife. I found that when we have had to do that a couple times in the past, and I found that when we did it that way, or I approached my mom, if your husband has a problem with something your mom is doing, it's better for you as the daughter to approach her and not be like, oh, can you believe this? My husband wants me to talk to you about this. No, you need to be like, this, I just wanted to come to you because I really feel like I need to talk to you about this. It's really been weighing on my heart. You're doing something that we don't really want in our children's lives, or you're doing something we don't approve of, or this is the way it's making us feel. I found it's better if the husband, if your husband approaches his parents, and if you approach your parents, that just seems to work better. And that leads me to the point of where was I going with this? I can't remember now because I saw a question. Kelly said, how do you handle it when it's your own parents? My husband hates my mom and won't let her stay in the same house when she visits. It's so awkward. I would probably, just tell, if your husband really doesn't want your mom to stay at the house, I mean, it's his house too. So you kind of have to work with that. So I would just let your mom know, maybe it just doesn't work well for the family unit. I love you, Mom. But, if you could just get a hotel room when you visit, if she's out of state or something like that, that would be beneficial for all of us. I feel like sometimes people can overstay their visit, or they can visit too much. And then, what is it? Dead fish and company all stink within 3 days. So I do feel like 2 or 3 days is the limit for that. My husband, every husband's different, but mine actually prefers that it's just our family in our home. He does not mind people coming. He loves having people over, like during the day, things like that. But he would much rather, like at night, it just be our family under his roof. He just prefers that. So maybe your husband is the same way. So, just try to explain that to your mom. Maybe tell your husband, I know you have problems with my mom, but she is still my mom and I want to honor her. Can we please try to just work through this? If your mom is just being mean to your husband, and just, tell her, say, I cannot put up with you being mean to my husband. He is my husband and my loyalty lies to him. And I have had to tell different family members that throughout the years, that my husband is my number one priority. And you know what? Sometimes, and I'm just going to tell you guys this, sometimes I don't even agree 100% with the way my husband's acting, or I don't even agree 100% with his decisions. But when it comes to my family, I have a united front with my husband to them. And I have to tell them my loyalty is with him. And, if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to choose his side and I'm going to go along with what he says. And that was what I was going to talk about when I lost my train of thought. When it comes to that, do not bash your husband to your parents, and especially to his, because first of all, your mother-in-law, that's her baby. And for my husband, he's the only boy. So my mother-in-law is always going to love him. That's her baby boy, and that's her only baby boy. And as a mom, I'm thinking, as a mom with my sons, if I had a daughter-in-law, I'm not there yet, but if I had a daughter-in-law that was constantly complaining about them, that would really bother me, because I'm always going to love my boys. And I want them to marry someone that's going to respect them and going to encourage them. And if she's constantly tearing him down and saying how stupid he is and what an idiot he is, and I can't stand him, that would really, really bother me as their mom. So I can imagine that would bother my mother-in-law. So, speak good things about him. Tell her your son's great. I love your son. You raised a great man, and then when it comes to your own parents, your mom, it might be really tempting, especially if you have a close relationship, to go and just spill about the fight that you just had. But you are going to forget and you're going to work through that fight. And your mom might not, because her son-in-law did her daughter wrong. So just remember that. Be careful with talking about fights to people. Even with my very, very best friend, Erica, who I just visited, I don't talk about fights. That's something that's between my husband and I, and we always work through them. You always do. You're going to have fights. If you say you don't have fights, you're lying. You're trying to be all super spiritual. All of us fight. We're human. So we have to live with each other. So we're all going to fight. But, other people aren't going to forget about that fight. You are going to move on and forget it, but other people aren't. So let me look over these questions. So I think I saw one up here. Let's see. What was it? I'm sorry if I missed your message. I think someone deleted it. I can't find it anymore. Miss Sherry said, I'm determined to be the best mother-in-law, mother, and grandma I can be. Definitely trying to break the dysfunctional chain that plagued my family growing up. Yeah, and that's another thing. If you see problems in how things were in your family, maybe there's problems between your in-laws and your husband, or you and your parents, there's dysfunction there. Try to do better by your kids. Try to break that, like Miss Sherry said, break that chain. So Jessica said, a united front is so important. My mom tried to talk bad about my husband once, and only once. I will not put up with that. I will not either. I think my family knows not to say anything. And you know what? My family does not agree with a lot of the stands that we have taken. They're all, as far as I know, they're all saved, but they do not agree with some of the strong stands we have taken. And I know they don't agree. But we're able to get along in the same room for the most part. We're able to get along just by not bringing that stuff up, and they know that I am united with my husband, and they know better than to bash him. So they don't. Not to me. They might to each other, and they might behind my back, but they don't to me. And I have made it very, very known that I am on his side 100%. And I will back him up until my dying breath. So they know that, and they need to know that. If you've been wishy-washy in the past about that, try to resolve to do better. Try to say, I am going to be my husband's ally. I am going to be his friend. I am going to support him. Get behind him and really encourage him, especially if he has decided to do something in your family that is going to make waves. It's going to rock the boat. He needs to know that you're there supporting him, because he can get weary sometimes and he can get down. And if everyone's against him, but his wife is behind him, holding him up, then that'll go a long way. So yes, I agree about divorced parents as well. The same can apply to divorced parents. Don't talk badly about mom to the kids and vice versa. Yes, definitely. Even if you are divorced, you do not want to put the kids against each other. There's been a lot of nasty divorces that I've seen. And I think it's worse when the parents are constantly trying to pit the kids against each other. That just makes it worse and more hairy. You don't want to do that. If you have to go through the pain of a divorce, try to remember that you loved that man, and he loved you at one point enough to make babies. So, try to even have a united front with how you do things when it comes to those babies. I have obviously never had a divorce, but I've had siblings that have had divorces, and they've had children together in those divorces. And so I've kind of seen how things have gone with that. So yeah, I would definitely say try to even keep a united front if you can. Try to keep the peace, because that is still your children's father. So Obviously, there are exceptions. If he, needs to do prison time or something like that, then, obviously that's an exception. If he's committed a crime or he's a pervert, obviously there are exceptions. But so realize, oh yeah, what to do, but we're back to the toxic in-laws. I totally got off in a rabbit trail. But yeah, it's okay to cut ties temporarily sometimes if you have to. You just need to tell them, we need our space for a little bit. And, just say, we need our space and we will be okay in a little bit, but we just need our space right now. And hopefully they will honor that. Sometimes distance makes the heart grow fonder. I definitely feel like things maybe get better sometimes when you move a little bit away and they're not able to see the kids as much. I feel like then it's more exciting when they see the kids, and then they're more likely to respect your decisions and things than when they see them every day. Or, sometimes you can get too comfortable with each other and a little distance is good. It makes the heart grow fonder. That's what I've found anyways. My husband worked under his dad for about 10 years, and that was kind of tough because not only now even though he was out from under his dad and he was married and was raising children of his own, now his dad was his employer. And that kind of made for some tense situations sometimes. And I feel like things got a whole lot better once we completely we were out from under that. And we moved here for my husband to start the church almost 8 years ago. I feel like that really helped the relationship improve. It's going to be different for every family. That's just my opinion because that's what I saw. Some dads have different personalities and they're great with their son working under them. They're a lot more easygoing, but some of the more like dictatorship type personalities would not do as well with a son working under them. So, and I've seen that a lot in the ministry, being in the ministry a lot. I have definitely seen that for some father-son relationships, pastor, assistant pastor, it works great. And then other son and father relationships, it is kind of toxic. So that's a case by case scenario, of course. So Miss Sherry said, sadly, I've had to cut my family out of my life because they would not quit talking bad about my husband. It was really bad. Yeah. And I feel like us pastors' wives that have husbands that are on the front lines fighting things and they're constantly being attacked, whether it's in the media or online, having videos made about them, having websites made about them. I do feel like we need to be even more so behind our husbands because they're already getting attacked on every front and they need their wives behind them. So, sometimes you might have to just cut family members out if they won't behave. So I agree with that. Kimmy said, we are currently having to separate from my dad and stepmom. I'm sorry to hear that. It is tough. It's so easy to say, just cut ties. But when it comes down to it, you have to really agonize over it and pray. And it's tough, but I've had to a couple times. And when I actually did it, it was like a sense of relief. And then my head was clear and my heart was clear and I didn't have that hanging over me all the time. You know what I mean? So it is easier said than done, definitely. So Amber said, it's so important for kids to see mom and dad are there for each other and defend and support one another, even when they don't see eye to eye. I completely agree. Even if they are divorced, when it comes down, you still have to raise kids and you still have to have standards and boundaries in their lives and rules. And if one parent is just letting them do whatever at their house and then they go to the other parent's house and there's strict rules, obviously that's going to cause friction. So, and it goes the same for married parents with the kids living with them. Be united. So I'm just about done. So if you have any more questions or comments, go ahead and leave them and I'll read them off. Amber said, my stepdad abused me as a child and my mom chose to stay with him. I absolutely cut all ties and will not allow them around my children ever. Good for you. I would not let them around. If it comes to an abuse situation, if you were abused by your parents, you are not obligated to let them into your life around your children. Your first priority is protecting your children. And once a child abuser, I firmly believe always a child abuser, Someone that would abuse a child will always be that way, and you do not need to let them around your children. So good for you. Blessed Mama said, I recently cut off contact with my mother-in-law because of her constant mistreatment of me. Thankfully, my husband backed me up and isn't trying to force a relationship. Good for him. You know, his first and most important relationship needs to be you. So if your mother-in-law is causing you anxiety and, you know, maybe if you do cut her off temporarily, maybe it'll bring her to her senses. That's happened before too. People have gotten right and they've quit doing the toxic things that they do. And then they're able to come back into your life. So let's see. So yeah, realize that while the grandparent's role in your child's life is nothing to be taken lightly, it's also not as important as a working relationship between you and your spouse. So always remember, it's leave and cleave. Back to that. The spousal relationship is definitely the most important. And the husband needs to be on board. And like I said before, he needs to be the one to talk to his parents. If it comes down to drama, it comes down to a situation, it's a lot better if he approaches his mom and dad versus you. Same with you approaching your parents if it's involving your husband or your children or something. It's better just coming from the child themselves. So, and then, you know, like I said before, don't talk bad about your spouse to your parents or his parents. You know, I think as I'm thinking ahead to when my children get married, but it would do my heart so good and make me so proud of my son if his future wife was just like talking him up, you know, saying what a great man Tommy is, and he works so hard for us, and he provides so hard, you know, he provides so much for us. You know, if you don't know, I have a son named Tommy as well. Like, it's confusing because my father-in-law is Tommy, my husband is Tommy, and my son is Tommy. So it gets super, super confusing at times. But I think it would do my heart great as a mom to hear, you know, my daughter-in-law is talking about how great of men, you know, because then you feel like, okay, I did it. I raised a functioning adult, you know. So imagine how you would feel and then try to do that with your own mother-in-law. You know, sometimes I feel like my mother-in-law or my mom would be like, well, you know, why is your husband doing this? I'm like, well, because, you know, he's a great man of God and he's a great preacher and he's decided he's going to stick by the Bible, even if it causes problems. And I'll say something along those lines. So I'm sorry. I have a cold. So yeah, things like that. I feel like just be your husband's biggest cheerleader, even to his parents. You know, let them know that they raised a good son. They did a good job. And then, you know, hopefully you will not have many problems with them. But if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and leave them. I got to think of something to do now for the giveaway. I just sent out. Oh, it's fine. I just have a little cough. Probably from my daughter coughing in my face all night. I literally had fallen asleep and I woke up. Alana's like coughing, like I'm on the pillow and her face is like right in my face coughing. So Kimmy said, it's nice as a mother-in-law to see your children marry good spouses. It's scary giving your daughter away to a man. I know. Yes, Miss Sherry. Part of it is because of no sleep. It's affecting my voice, making it scratchy. And Brittany said, I'm happy to see that he didn't turn you off to God, which can sometimes happen in cases. It really can. I really feel like child abuse is one of the leading causes for turning people totally against God and into atheists and down the path to becoming a reprobate. So I'm glad that you turned to the Lord instead of turning away. Oh, I need to, let's see. Trying to think of the verse. I'm trying to think of how to do a giveaway. Let me see. Lack of sleep can cause you to get sick. Yes, this I know. She said, Amber said, unfortunately, I ran to God instead of away. God placed others in my life to guide me in the right direction. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to Google something really quick here. I am going to Google. I did the thing last week where I did the verse. Okay, so we're going to do another verse. Here we go. This is a good one. And I probably was this woman today because we cleaned, and I don't like cleaning, and I get pretty upset when we clean, when it's a huge, huge mess. So this is a verse in Proverbs, and it is talking about, I need to write down so I don't forget. It's talking about a woman that you don't want to be like. Here's one. Okay. Let me get it back on chat. Everyone's going to be Googling this as soon as I get it back on chat. Okay. Where are we? There we go. Okay. So this is the type of woman you don't want to be. It's talking about a contentious and angry woman. It's better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. So what is the reference for that? Exact reference. Nope. Not Proverbs 14:1. Let me read the exact verse, okay? I think that's the dripping one. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman. What is the reference for that? Nope. Not Proverbs 25:24. There we go. Sandra Gibbs got it. Proverbs 21:19. That was my pre-guess. Sandra Gibbs got it. She was fast. And JJ, you came in too late right after them. Proverbs 21:19. As a woman, I should know that one by heart, but nope. Me neither. I had to Google it. So Sandra Gibbs, you have won. I like the name Sandra. That's what my husband calls me. He doesn't call anyone by their full name. So he makes up nicknames for all the kids. And like almost all the kids are like food items, like pork chop, Kelly bean. I don't know what the other ones are. He makes up weird names. So my name is Sandra. He never ever calls me Cassandra. It's always Sandra. So, okay. So Sandra, just email me or message me on Facebook, the Gently Led Sisters one, and email me or message me your address so I can get that sent out. Hopefully I will get it sent out before next week. Sorry about that, Amber Hunt. I had a really, really busy week, but this week should be better. And then next week is Red Hot, next Thursday. Who's going to Red Hot? Anyone going to Red Hot? I know Kimmy will be there celebrating a 40th birthday pretty soon. Is that next week, Kimmy? And then, so that'll be fun. I will be taking the baby and I will be flying with the baby for the first time. So we shall see how that goes. She's already high maintenance. So let's see how she does on a plane. Oh, it'll be interesting. So, the 21st. Very cool. And we're going to be there through the 20th. So I'm not going to be there on your birthday. So we'll have to like go out for coffee or something. All right, guys. So that's about it for now. I am hoping to have in the next couple of weeks a lady named Fiona O'Hagan, and she is from Ireland. They are flying in. We have become very close friends with their family, the O'Hagans, throughout the last year or so, and they are flying in this week. And so she lost. She calls it stone because it's a different measurement in Ireland, but she's lost a lot of weight. And I wanted to do a show with her about weight loss and healthy eating and losing weight and things like that. So I'm really excited to have her on. And so she will be on. They're flying in this week, so I don't know if it'll be next Monday or the following Monday, but one of these Mondays we're going to have her on, and you will love her Irish accent. And she's just a delightful person. So I want all of you to meet her, and then she'll give us a lot of tips and a lot of good advice. And I'll be so excited to have her on. I was going to do like a Google Hangouts with her, but they're 6 hours ahead of us, and we were going to have to try to figure out how that would work, because if it was 7 p.m. here, then it would be like 2 in the morning there, something, 1 or 2 in the morning. So I was like, why don't you just do it when you come? So they are flying in this week. So look forward to that. And awesome. Sherry will be there. Lots of people will be at Red Hot. So yes, her Irish accent is awesome. So we will see you next week, and she might be on next week. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you later.